Many people have found themselves in bad relationships that they probably should have never entered to begin with. And while they may have ended the relationship, there can be a bond that still remains. So, in this video, we're going to talk about 9 signs that show you have a soul tie and how to break it. While the phrase soul tie is not in itself in the Bible, the concept is certainly mentioned. But first, let's be clear about what the soul is. So, man is a 3-dimensional being, the 3 dimensions being the spirit, soul, and body. The soul is comprised of your mind, which is your intellect, your will, and your emotions. And it's the emotions that play a big part in the forming of a soul tie. So, what is a soul tie? A soul tie is an attachment that one has to someone from their past or present. You can, in fact, have a soul tie with someone who is deceased. I know someone personally who experienced this. She had an emotional attachment to a man from her past whom she hadn't seen in decades. When she found out that he had died 5 years earlier, she experienced a profound sense of grief, so much so to the point where she said it felt as if her heart was being ripped out of her chest. She didn't even know that this man still had a part of her heart, and she immediately prayed and broke this soul tie. So you can have a soul tie with someone who is deceased, and you can have a soul tie and not even know it. So keep that in mind. Now, what references in the Bible specifically refer to soul ties? Well, in 1 Samuel, the 18th chapter and the first verse, it mentions that Jonathan and David had this type of relationship. It says, "Now when he had finished speaking to Saul, the soul of Jonathan was knit to the soul of David, and Jonathan loved him as his own soul." The word knit means to bind, to join together, to be in league with someone, to be united to someone, or to tie together. In fact, the Aramaic word for knit is knot. Hence the American saying, when you get married, tying the knot. So you can have healthy soul ties as well as unhealthy soul ties. So an example of a healthy soul tie would be marriage. In the book of Mark, the 10th chapter, verses 8 and 9, it says, referring to marriage, "The two shall be one flesh. What God has joined together, let no man separate." And that word joined in the Greek means to be yoked together in a relationship. This is why Paul said in 2 Corinthians 6:14, "Do not be unequally yoked with unbelievers. For what partnership has righteousness with lawlessness?" So in marriage, a healthy soul tie is formed, or at least should be formed. There have been times when a soul tie is formed with someone other than your spouse, as in the case of having an extramarital affair. But marriage in itself, the marriage relationship, is an example of having a healthy soul tie. Also, an example of a healthy soul tie is that between friends. So a godly friendship can form a healthy soul tie. Now, you can have a soul tie in a toxic friendship relationship as well. In other words, being friends with someone who doesn't have your best interest at heart, or someone who doesn't add to your life, but in fact makes you feel bad when you're around them. So this would be a toxic friendship, and it would form unhealthy soul ties. But you can have a healthy soul tie form in a godly friendship, as I mentioned earlier, in the friendship between Jonathan and David. Another healthy soul tie would be that between a parent and a child. When you give birth to a child, a special bond, an emotional attachment is formed, and this bond is formed so that we can love, protect, and care for our children. So a healthy soul tie would be one formed between a parent and child. I want you to keep in mind that healthy soul ties will have a positive effect on your soul. Now let's look at unhealthy soul ties. An unhealthy soul tie, as I mentioned, can occur in a friendship relationship or a toxic friendship relationship. Unhealthy soul ties can occur. Also, an unhealthy soul tie can be formed between two people who are in an intimate relationship and are not married. You can also have a soul tie with an ex-spouse, particularly if you continue to have an intimate relationship with that ex-spouse. This is absolutely a sign of a soul tie at work. Also, you can have a soul tie with the father or mother of your child whom you were never married to. So an unhealthy soul tie can come about with someone you had a significant relationship with in the past. So how are soul ties formed exactly? Well, soul ties can be formed through an emotional dependency. In other words, being psychologically dependent or needy. So when one or both people in a relationship has self-esteem issues and insecurities, this can be a breeding ground for the formation of a soul tie. These issues come from negative experiences and unhealthy past relationships. So that's the basis of how soul ties are formed. Now let's look at 9 signs that show you have a soul tie. Number 1, thinking about the person more than anyone else in your life. This person takes up a lot of your mental space. A day doesn't go by when you don't think about them. Number 2, getting depressed when you do think about them. When you think about that person, you have feelings of sadness or loneliness, and you get depressed because you're not with that person. Number 3, feeling incomplete without them. You have a longing for them. You feel empty. You feel incomplete if you're not near that person. Number 4, you feel the relationship is one of a kind. You feel that you'll never find another love like that one. You may even feel like this is your only chance or even your last chance at love. Number 5, you feel an emotional attachment you can't explain, even to the point of loyalty. Number 6, you find it difficult to imagine life without that person. When you think about marriage, all you see is that particular person. Number 7, you feel a sense of obligation to them when you shouldn't. Number 8, you keep going back to the relationship, hoping it will get better. And number 9, your emotional attachment to them has moved you further away from God. You spend so much time with them in your thoughts, and this has robbed you of spending quality time with the Lord. Anything that takes God's place in your life becomes an idol. So I want you to always remember that ungodly soul ties will delay and even stop you from progressing in life and fulfilling your God-given purpose. Also remember that ungodly soul ties will block you from clearly hearing, seeing, and understanding the will of God for your life. And so if you can relate to even one of those 9 statements, you have a soul tie that needs to be broken. So how do you break a soul tie? Well, you first have to acknowledge that you have one. Then you would need to repent and ask God's forgiveness for giving someone else the love, time, attention, and devotion that only He deserves. And then you would need to pray a prayer denouncing and breaking all ungodly emotional attachments that have formed from past relationships. So the next video will be a prayer breaking ungodly soul ties. Hey, have you picked up your copy of The Mysterious Language of Dreams yet? In this book, I go more in depth about dreams and dream interpretation than I do on my YouTube videos. I talk about the depth dimension of dreams, dream layers. I talk about the time dimension of a dream. Also, dreams and the imagination, which is quite interesting. I also have put over 40 real life actual dreams that people have dreamt in the book for you to practice your interpretation skills. Also, in the back of the book is a dream dictionary with over 400 dream symbols. So I've left a link in the description box below where you can go and pick up your copy of The Mysterious Language of Dreams today. Do you believe you may have had or have a soul tie? If so, leave it in the comments section. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you're not a part of the Dream Team. Turn on your notifications so you won't miss any upcoming videos, and hit that like button if you liked this video. I'll talk to you all next time.